Nice catch, Jala.
Don't just stand there, attack it!
Your mask. It isn't like the others. You're not one of Makuta's beasts.
You think I'm just some beast? I am more than a simple beast for you to pen. I am Tahu! And you are a pest.
Jala, are you all right? This is some way for a Toa to act towards the ones who he is destined to protect.
A Toa?
The Toa?
Yes, this is our Toa. He apparently thinks himself a Toa of stupidity. And you call yourself the captain of the guard.
Yes?
This is the one we have waited for. And you decide to trap him like a wild Hikaki.
But I didn't... My apologies, Taragavakama. It won't happen again.
If you decide to become the Toa of Fire, come to my hut. There I can explain everything.
Hello. Welcome to the Bionicle Day 2022 Q&A. I am Mohio. I am one of the executive producers for Bionicle Iliad, and I am joined with two special guests. I am joined by Ghidorah, showrunner of Bionicle Iliad, and Obsidian, the new animation and visual director for Bionicle Iliad.
I am very excited to be here. This is, I've been helping work away at this project for a while, and it's nice to see that we've come so far with it now.
I miss my wife.
True.
Well, I have a couple of questions prepared for the start of this Q&A, and we will re-show the Animatic again. For those of you who missed the start of the stream, we will replay it in about half an hour. But first, I want us to discuss a little bit about what we just saw and a little bit more about the Animatic in general. So Gid, would you be able to help describe what this Animatic is and what it means for Bionicle Iliad?
Well, I can certainly try. This animatic was a passion project, as everything in Iliad is, by various members of the scripting team, storyboarding team, and editing team. It's covering a scene that was written for episode 1, Tahu's arrival in the Charred Forest.
Okay. You say that it's from episode 1. Is this the kind of a story that we can expect going into the series?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah. Is there more to this story? Will we see where Tahu goes after this scene in episode 1 and in the future of the series?
Oh, there definitely is more to the story. Right before this, we don't really see much of Tahu, but we will see him after this scene. This is about halfway through episode 1's script.
Okay. If we don't see a lot of Tahu, I know that's a little weird for a lot of the Bionicle community to not see the red boy constantly up in the front and center. Who can we expect to see more of in episode 1?
For Bionicle Iliad, we're trying to take inspiration from as many different sources of Bionicle canon as possible. There are the books, which are the ultimate source for us, but there are other inspirations for scenes depicted that are not depicted in the books, such as the comics, web animations, Modern Nui online game, and the movies. Obviously, the books hold precedence in what we take inspiration from, but this particular episode was heavily inspired by the first Bionicle comic, in which the first Toa we see in that comic is Kopaka.
So we can expect to see more of Kopaka and perhaps even Matora, if I remember issue number 1 correctly, in episode 1.
We will be seeing quite a bit more of Kopaka in episode 1. We will see his arrival, his meeting Matoro, and his meeting with the other Toa, as well as his meeting with Kopaka and the journey to Mount Ihu.
Sounds like there's going to be a lot of going on for Kopaka in this first episode.
Yes, Kopaka gets quite the spotlight. We're hoping that each episode will be able to highlight one or more specific Toa, so that they all get fairly equal screen time.
Next up, I'm going to pass one of the questions over to Obsidian, who was one of the people in charge of making sure this animatic came to reality. what would you say is one of the hardest aspects throughout this whole process of making sure this animatic came to life?
Well, I guess that's probably between the storyboarding and the editing. There was a lot of, I mean, obviously it takes quite a lot of time to draw every storyboard out for this scene. There was more than 100 frames in this entire, 4-minute piece. And, colouring those in as well took quite a lot of time, which we very much thank Gid for suffering through that to the very end. And of course, Inactivist for drawing out the initial boards and making them look as professional as they do. And then on the editing side, there was obviously quite a lot of back and forth as the boards themselves were finalized. We got music added in. We were tweaking the sound and the voice acting and the music throughout the process to fine-tune things and make sure everything sounded as good as we could get it. Until we ended up with the final product that you see before you.
Well, I think that's definitely one of the most impressive aspects of this whole entire animatic was the amount of quality visual storytelling from the cinematography. One of my favorite aspects is just that pan up from the Rahi book that we see as the screen moves up towards Tahu. It's really cool to witness as you get that really sense of danger of Tahu looming over the rest of the Matoran.
Oh yeah, that was a very fortunate case of that whole segment was a little bit more awkward beforehand, but we managed to get the pan to work out because both frames of that board use the exact same image of the book of Rahi, so we could just have the pan go between them quite seamlessly and have that really dramatic look upwards, which was, yeah, that was quite impressive when that came out. I was very happy with how it looked, and I'm sure our editor, Iconic Days, was also very happy with it as well.
This is true. There's a lot of people that came together for this project to be able to make it look as frankly amazing as it does. But I wanted to talk about really quickly, a lot of it comes together through the music going throughout the whole entire piece, amping up every single shot and the menace and the danger that exists. Would you be able to discuss a little bit further on what created the theme that we see inside of this animatic?
Well, obviously the main track itself was put together by our fantastic composer, Inimata, listed in the credits as Charlie Eastwood, who is very much nudging at me through the VC text. He did a very great job, not only in putting this track together, but also piecing together other aspects that were introduced as musical ideas by our fellow composer Lou Meister. And would you say it's fair to say, I see you still in the YouTube chat, was there any influence from Techno Cinema, our other composer, in terms of how the final track came out?
Yeah, I'll just let him in. He'll be able to give, I think, a better explanation on this aspect, on the inspiration.
Yeah, I might as well.
Hello. Welcome.
Oh, hello. My apologies in advance. I'm slightly sick. It is also very late over here in Australia. To answer the question that you asked about uh techno and working with techno, I think it wasn't. I'm trying to find a way to word this. Tech has been working a lot on with us on specifically motifs and working with like musical phrases and making ways to make certain characters have their own little phrases and their own little riffs and chords and notes that signify them in a scene. As far as what he was doing for this scene, he made the little sound effects on the intro, and I think he helped a little bit on the second, like the outro, like the last part. But a lot of what Tech's been working on, what Techno Cinema has been doing, hasn't been showcased yet. For the most part, the majority of the music that you hear in that animatic is me and Lou Meister.
This is true. I'm very excited to see what we have coming up in the future for the compositions of the series. A lot of time has been spent really handcrafting a lot of the themes so that they fit the characters and the locations, and that each one sounds unique in its own way, and also kind of twists what's come before in a manner that is exciting and surprising.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think one of the things that's been really interesting to work with has been deciding as a team, and Mohio and Obzi have both been involved in this since we've all kind of been working together through a lot of different aspects and just deciding which parts of the different influences we have are going to rear their heads up in different sounds and stages and scenes. So like you might have some influence from Minogue in certain scenes, and you might have some from the films and some from the games, or some from other Bionicle fan works. You know, I think that's been really interesting to try and piece it all together, but make it still sound cohesive.
Thank you very much. Next up, I have a couple of questions with regards to the just kind of what we can expect to see in the future for Bionicle Iliad. I know that we just had this animatic drop, but I'm sure everyone who's watching at home or anybody who will watch this VOD later is interested to know what more can we expect out of Iliad from the future? Will we see more animatics like this?
I definitely hope that we will. I can't give any definite promises that we absolutely will see more animatics, but we would definitely like to make more of them. A lot of what we're able to produce at the moment is based on the availability of current members and how many members we have. Not every person in Iliad does the same thing or similar things. We have one person who's very good at editing, who I imagine would not be too interested to voice act. But we're always looking for new people to join the project and to be interested in that process. And at present, we expect that we will be able to get more animatics out in the future. But the more people we have willing to help with the project and capable of helping, the quicker it will go.
Good to hear. In addition, I'm sure everyone's curious that Bionicle Iliad was announced and launched as a 3D animated CGI web series. Is it still going to be that? Can we expect to see CGI animation in the future?
Our goal of having this be a fully 3D CGI animated television show on YouTube is still very much the same, and we do not intend to waver from this goal. Initially, there were other ideas about how to accomplish the project back when it first began, but our current goal of having it be 3D CGI and available for all audiences on a multiple different platforms is still very much the goal and will still be the goal no matter what we do. At present, this is simply a fun little thing we figured we could show off to people to show where we are on the project and what we've been doing.
That's good to hear. It's good to know that Iliad is still working relatively towards their goal, and hopefully we'll be able to see more in the future about this animation and where the episode 1 is headed. Next up, I would like to take some viewer questions, so please leave some questions down in the chat, in either the live stream chat or in our Discord. We have a chat, Q&A chat, designated specifically for asking questions for the people who are hosting this. So please do that, and we'll get right back to you after the live stream. Pardon. We'll get back after you after this question. With the future of Iliad in mind, one of the questions that we constantly get that I'm sure will appear in the future will definitely be about whether or not there is the ability to be able to donate. We've gotten that question a couple of times. In the past, we've not had that capability open. Will that be changing soon?
It's been a hard decision to make, since no one in Iliad wants to make money off of Iliad. We've decided that for the purposes of equipment, for voice actors, animators, and whoever else may need it, as well as potential software purchases, we will be opening up I believe it's pronounced Ko-fi page, where you can donate however much you desire to, or you can make it one time or repeating month to month. We don't have any suggested donation amounts. It's entirely up to if you want to donate and how much.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be able to see that open up soon, and we'll be able to look towards making sure that everyone in the team is able to have the highest quality equipment that we can afford. That way we can see more of this come out in the future. We're talking stuff like microphones, software licenses, hardware parts to make sure that the rendering capabilities are top notch. And while we don't expect a ton of money coming into this, any little bit will help towards this end.
I should also mention that while it's fantastic to have donations for hardware parts to help render out scenes or help with modeling capabilities, we won't be able to do too much without talented modelers willing to help. So if you are a talented modeler and you're willing to help, you can join our public Discord server and send an application to work as part of the project.
Next up, we'll be taking viewer questions. In this segment, I'll direct a question to somebody who I believe will have the best knowledge for it. And I think for this first one, Obsidian, since you're both part of the scripting team, I think you'll be able to answer this one. But we have from Austin Dunavant, I hope I pronounced your name right. Will each episode correlate to a single year of story? How long will each episode approximately be?
Well, it'll definitely not be possible to get an episode per year of story just by nature of how densely packed each year of story is. The initial kind of projections for how much each episode would be able to cover changed a little bit over the course of the early life cycle of the project. Episode 1, Episode 1 kind of covers the arrival of the Toa in 2001, and through the next, the first arc for 2001 is 7 episodes long, giving a kind of good amount of screen time to each of the Toa, and then and Takua and his adventures as well, before they all unite at the Kini Nui and have their final confrontation with Makuta and the Rahi. Later arcs are a little bit more streamlined just by nature of how the story changes around, but it's definitely not 1 episode per year. It wouldn't be possible to do that. Even with the episodes that we currently have, the scripts are to the point where we would at least expect 20 minutes to maybe half an hour in length for some of the shorter ones, and a couple of them would potentially even run over that just by nature of the amount of stuff that needed to be covered in that episode.
That's a good point, and I think I'll handle the next part of this question. There was also the how long will each episode approximately be? And you did touch on that a little bit, with the idea that with the amount of content in each episode to make a narrative through line for each episode, the episodes will vary in length, but I would say a good estimate would be around 30 minutes, and you'll see most episodes around that length will be a 30-minute episode with a full story. For example, in episode 1, you see the Toa arrive, and you go until they meet up with each other and they interact for the first time. And that's the narrative through line of that episode, is whether or not the Toa can actually understand who they are, and can they meet up as a team. And then that'll continue as a through line for the other episodes, and each episode has a narrative, its own narrative story to tell, and until it's told, that's how long the episode will kind of last. The next question comes from Michael Masson. Gid, I believe this question will be best suited for you. Are you working with projects like Bionicle Quest for Mata Nui and Bionicle Masks of Power to share assets and environments?
At present time, projects like Bionicle Quest for Mata Nui and Bionicle Mask of Power have done extremely well and are much farther along in terms of visual presentation and what they're able to output to the public than where Iliad is. In Iliad, from the very beginning, back when it was first announced on the TTV message boards, has been under the opinion that we should not be going out to ask other people in the community with their own projects for help. If any other projects see us and decide that possibly they would like to help us out in some way, we are absolutely not objecting to it. By all means, if you wish to help, we'll be glad to accept it. However, we are not going to go looking for help. We are not going to ask the other community projects for favors. I think that what they're doing, what they have done, both of them, is extremely cool. And we do not wish to impede their progress. But if any project or any individual in the community wishes to help, we are definitely willing to accept that help.
Thank you.
I also noticed that we have a question in the Discord Q&A chat, which is the question, will Gid do a face reveal when Iliad releases?
Maybe.
You're here first, folks. That is a sound
waiting.
Maybe.
I will watch this with great interest.
of course. All right. With that in mind, in case you missed the animatic, we will run it once again. And in the meantime, please do send all of your questions to either our Discord server or to the YouTube chat while you're rewatching this, so that we can have more questions to answer for you guys.
Now!
We got it!
Nice catch, Jala.
Don't just stand there, attack it! Your mask. It isn't like the others. You're not one of Makuta's beasts.
You think I'm just some beast? I am more than a simple beast for you to pen. I am Tahu! And you are a pest.
Jala, are you all right? This is some way for a Toa to act towards the ones who he is destined to protect.
A Toa?
The Toa?
Yes, this is our Toa. He apparently thinks himself a Toa of stupidity. And you call yourself the captain of the guard.
Yes?
This is the one we have waited for. And you decide to trap him like a wild Hikaki.
But I didn't... My apologies, Taragavakama. It won't happen again.
If you decide to become the Toa of Fire, come to my hut. There I can explain everything.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Bionicle Iliad Bionicle Day 2022 Q&A. We have a couple more questions, first of which will go from Gid, and then we'll ask viewer questions once again. So please, in the meantime, make sure you jot down your questions and we'll answer them as we go through.
So, I had a question for both of you.
Uh-oh.
Are you an up at or up till person?
I'll let Obzi answer first.
I'm definitely an up-till person. I hate waking up in the morning with a burning passion.
Well, that was very succinct.
I am insomniac, so that means I'm both. I will either be up till or I will be up at, depending on what's going on at the time. For example, for this project and making sure that everything was getting through and social media was prepared and everything was thought of, I would both be up until late hours of the night and then up really early after only a little bit amount of sleep working on the project again. I was fueled by the power of naps and caffeine.
I can confirm this answer. Mohio was up most of the night, if not all of the night, and then he went to bed at 10 a.m. to go to work, and I believe only a couple hours after that.
Yes.
Yeah. Mohio's sleep cycle has been absolutely destroyed by the back end of the preparation for this day.
It has nothing to do with the back end of the preparation from this day. It just hasn't helped.
It just happened. Okay.
I've been an up till person for several years, and it's not been good for me. I'm trying to become an up at person, but we'll see how well that works.
Of course.
Now, you said we had a question in the live stream?
This is correct. This one comes from Ocean View 56. Any thoughts of transitioning from 2D to 3D in terms of the overall project? Is 3D animation more time consuming than 2D? I can actually answer that question, and then if you guys want to add on, feel free. So the process from transitioning to 2D to 3D is simple, but very difficult to achieve and very time consuming. Transitioning from 2D is the art of making sure your storyboards convey the vision you want to have for the final product. And so in that aspect, a lot of the animatic is going to be used as the basis for the 3D animations, camera pans, cinematography, and timing. However, the difficult aspect in terms of transitioning to 3D animation is that you will need to recreate everything in 3D. So that'll require 3D models for both the characters and the creatures and the environment, which is very time consuming on that front to make. But in addition, you also have the added bonus of having to animate everything. And so in order to make it look lifelike and fluid, it'll require a lot of time to move and plan the movement and to make sure it moves in a natural fashion or in a motion that can imitate natural. I wouldn't say it necessarily takes up more time to create a 2D episode than a 3D episode. It's just a different amount of time. And we can mitigate a lot of that time by planning ahead and recreating and creating the storyboards so that the 3D animation team doesn't have to spend all that time animating and then the movement changes.
I think probably the more pertinent difference between 2D and 3D animation is the skill sets involved. Obviously, in the 2D sphere, you need much more of a drawing ability, whereas modeling and coding will get you a lot further in the 3D sphere.
Kid, any thoughts?
The animatic that you've seen just now, outside of panning, there is no actual animation occurring. These are all a series of still images with different speeds at which they show up. So this portion of the process isn't so much 2D animation as it is a 2D reference for the 3D animation. When we do translate it to 3D, this will be a reference for camera, for the speed at which characters move, and for nuances in the environment and lighting details, where the light comes from, how it reflects off characters, details like that. This is, I would say, very important for animation studios in general, but doubly important for us.
All right. I hope that answered your question, Ocean View. It's there was a lot of not necessarily technical, but very in-depth analysis of that front. So I hope it made any sense. Next up, I personally have another question for the crew of Iliad. One of which I think is very, very important. How long have you been a part of this project?
God, it's it's probably like it's definitely 3 years by now. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but I know that I joined sometime in 2019. I had seen the advertisement on TCV, and this has been a dream that I've always had to, streamline the entire Bionicle storyline into one digestible visual format. But yeah, the way that it's been going out, we've definitely had to work hard to get here, and I'm very thankful for everybody who's come together for this, in terms of, not just visual people, but audio people, people on the scripting team who have been working pretty much continuously since I joined, writing out the storyline for the early arc of Bionicle on the island of Matanui. We're up to pretty much the end of the Borok Cal arc now, in terms of scripting, if anybody's curious. And hopefully we'll be able to give you more of an idea of that in the future as we get more of this stuff visualized, in a similar fashion to this, if that's something that becomes a possibility. As Gid said before, we definitely want to do more animatics and more previews like this, but it will just depend on availability of team members and how the chips fall in terms of planning.
That's true. And
So
you
it was about, I'd say, 1247 AD. TTV board member Sam posted a project concept on the TTV message boards about a stop motion series covering all of Bionicle, starting from the point of Bar Magna. Fully chronological order. And I looked at this and said, this is a completely unworkable, utter disaster. You're never going to get anywhere with this. This is a terrible idea. Absolutely no one in their right mind is going to sign up for a project as ludicrous and unrealistic and unworkable as this. Where do I sign? And that's how it began. And I think it's been at least 5 years. It's got to be close to that if it's not been that long. And it's been a very, very rocky road. We changed goals early on from stop motion to 3D. And had some shenanigans with community drama, which stalled the project for a good while. But initially, I said to Sam, hey, Sam, can I be one of the people that's in charge? And he said, sure, without knowing me at all, which was such a wise choice, very much. And now here I am, at least 5 years later, in charge of the entire project. And it's an absolute blessing to be here, to be able to work on the project, to see that it's gotten this far, that we've actually got visual content prepared. It's been a long time coming, and I hope that I'll be able to stay on for many years more.
Yeah, I know I, for one, am definitely not going anywhere. This project is all about baby now, and I'm sticking with it to the bitter end.
Which one of us is the mom?
Me. I have been in labor for 3 years.
Guess that makes me the cool uncle.
Wait
True.
a minute. Am I the dad? What's the implications here?
I don't know.
I don't want to think about that.
Well, I think for me, I think I was just going down a stroll of memory lane the other week as we were closing in on the end of this animatic, and I saw my join date was like November, like 11th or something like that in 2017.
Oh
And
boy.
so I have been here almost 5 years at this point. It's been a while. I have seen the project change its story content a couple of times, from the Great Beings start to the Matoran Civil War, which I still want to go back to at some point because, like, you know, Matoran racism is an interesting concept to explore.
Oh yes, it's very funny.
And so
Oniwa is going to be he's going to be a Matoran war vet.
Of course. And so I think it was definitely a good decision to make that swap to the 2001 storyline to start off with, because it's familiar, people can get on board with it a little more, and we can follow along the story as it progressed through the timeline rather than having to make a kind of fit chronologically, or some chronologically, some out of order. And so all I have to say is, after all these years, I'm just glad we don't have to deal with the He who shall not be named.
Yeah, no. If anybody saw our April Fool's video, I'm sure they'll know the pain that we are speaking of.
Feel attacked.
True. So
And-
yeah, I've got a couple more questions in the chat.
Before we get to that, I had a question.
Oh,
When you guys eat egg, how do you like it prepared?
Egg. Ah, yes, singular.
Yes. Would you eat single egg and cry? How do you like this torture?
Um,
I just stuff the entire egg in my mouth and eat it raw, shell and all.
he's working on becoming more like the Eldritch horror that is Gid. I,
I
on the
see
other
that.
hand,
I see that you eat the peel.
I prefer a little more of a humane fashion. But I do like. I think my favorite is actually hard boiled. So only slightly more humane.
I'm going to be both humane and very much Gid and say that I prefer deviled.
That's fair.
We do be egging. So yeah, now let's get back to the actual questions.
One of the questions I see here in chat comes from our resident composer, Inimata. What is your favorite part of working on the project? I can start with this one. I think my favorite part of the project is I have two favorites right now. One is script writing. It's part of my weekly schedule. Every week we have a scripting meeting. Sometimes it falls through because of differing schedules. We have people that live across the globe that work on the scripting team. So there's like a 15-hour difference between some individuals, which can be a little difficult. But I definitely love the act of writing the storyline, coming up with new ways to spin the story, and even just really diving deep into who the characters are. There are some of my favorite moments when we sit there and we have all the Toa gathered together. And some of those scenes have been the best scenes because you just see all these different conflicting personalities and characters at different points in the arc just really either conflict or come together united under a common cause. And there are a couple of scenes in the future regarding Onua and Tahu that I feel like are the best. Some of the best scenes character.
No. I love the way that the character interactions have come out in these scripts, especially between the Toa. You very much get those kind of, I don't want to say found family, but like it's that kind of vibe of, they bicker and they argue, but in the end they come together.
This is true.
Personally,
When the chips
my
are down.
my favorite scenes in the script by far are the times when Liwa gets hurt.
We do a lot of that. Poor soul.
Oh no, we just got a question about tree speak.
Okay, we'll get to that in a few. I think to finish answering that question, the second part that's my favorite part of working on this project is sitting there with a completed product and going, I made that. And so whether it's like the script or it's this animatic, I get to sit there and go, I made that or we made that. And it's some of the, I think it's one of the most like just happy fueled moments when you go, I did something I made it with my own hands, and
happy feel. Are you tree speaking, my guy?
Yes, I do tree speak.
I get that happy feel moment as well, except it's at 4 a.m. coloring storyboards and looking at my carpal tunnel.
Your sacrifice will not be in vain.
It's okay. I'm definitely a Bionicle in real life. I'll just get a new handpiece.
I was about to say though, like, however, your sacrifice is in your veins.
Ah,
So,
ah ha ha.
See what I did there? See what I did there?
Are you sure
right,
you're not the dad?
Let's
Those jokes.
let's hand
Yeah.
it over to someone
I'd say
else
my
before I
favorite
turn
part
this
of
off.
working on the project. I'd say my favorite part is probably just bullying everyone into doing their jobs.
What a bully.
That part's quite fun.
He will legit ping you at like 4 a.m. your time and be like, "Get up! You need to do this." And they'll wake up very much often with like 20 pings.
You would not believe the cackle that this man had as soon as he found out he was a director.
Oh, yes.
It was scary.
The power that I have. I can pin messages. I can at everyone. I can create so much chaos in that server, and they have no idea what I have planned. Oh, wait, sorry. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
All right, and for you, Git,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
what's your favorite part of working on the project?
I guess that my favorite part of working on the project is the people. Really, honestly, it's the people in the project who are so talented and so willing. Who is a lot of people that we have had in the project who wanted to interject their own ideas all the time and ask us to rewrite the whole world and setting so that one 3D model could exist. But there's so many people in the project who understand the whole goal and see the common vision. And those people, obviously, they bring excellent ideas to the table. But it's when it's crunch time and we say we need this done for a certain Bionicle Day stream. Can you do it? And they step up to the table and say, "Yes, we can do it. We'll make the time expenditure. We'll do exactly what needs to be done." They are the best part of the project because we count on them, we need them, and they come through every time.
Yeah. Genuinely, the amount of times where I've been like, I feel like we're pushing this. There's no way that they're going to wake up, see this, and be like, oh yeah, I'll do this in, like, a day. But that's exactly what has happened so many times. I mean, even on this project.
And we'll have people who are like, I'll get started on this, and we expect this to be maybe half a week to a week, and they come back in 3 hours. Well, it's done, and it's better than I ever expected it could be.
Yeah. But yeah, no. The former version of that was definitely how the profile picture that we have for the Animatic that we now have uploaded on our channel, if anybody's interested. How that came out was basically we just pinged Picari and were like, yo, can you do this, please? And he hadn't been able to access that Discord account in like forever. And so he just kind of comes back on and is like, yeah, alright. And gets it done in a day. And it looks like the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, it's the thumbnail's fantastic, and to think he even also had he had the additional issue of like power going out for over half the day, and so he still was able to manage to get it in. Just fantastic.
And that's the other second half of what I meant by the people in the project, is that it's not simply the that they have talent or that they have time and resources or that they're willing to step up at crucial moments. It's that they're all really great people.
Mm.
I mean, the community of Iliad, the work community, is very much a informal family of sorts. We don't really get snippy at each other. We don't really have fights that often. And the environment of Iliad weeds out the ones who are more problematic, who will be starting fights and taking offense to things.
Hmm.
And it really makes this, for one thing, way better than my coworkers at my actual job, who get offended by everything. After a long day of dealing with everyone at work, I come home to Iliad. And in many ways, Iliad is my home. And all the people there are very close and very dear to me. And I really like hanging out with all of them, especially you guys.
Mm.
Aw. Wholesome moment from the Eldritch being
Except you suck.
among us.
Not you. Whoever heard that, you know who you are. You know who you are. I see you.
Next up, we have another question from Austin as we keep going further down the YouTube questions. Are priorities right now more on having later episodes prepared writing-wise or having early episodes completely done, modeling/music? And I can tackle this one. The benefit of having multiple departments in Iliad is that we can actually do both at the same time. While the animatic was being prepared and we were deciding on voice acting and the cast, and we were putting together the storyboards and the models for everything to make sure it was all ready to go, we could also set aside time to do script work. Now, there were some times where the script team had to work on helping make sure that the storyboards were, their vision was ready, and people were able to be able to follow through on the vision of the script, and we had to take away some time from that from script writing. But for the most part, we are still able to continue making later episodes while having early episodes completely done. But in terms of priority, I would say that making sure the episode's completely done does take more of a priority right now.
Yeah, no. We have later episodes for days, so if one of them is going to be the priority, it's going to be getting out the ones that we already have. Getting them finalized script-wise, getting the text scripts for them done, getting storyboards done, etc.
We also have another question from E4439QV5. Here's a question. How tricky hard is it to speak Lamatoran slang?
Not as hard as it is to say it. But actually,
I've had so much fun rewriting all the tree speak in this place.
Yeah, I was going to say, just as an outside observer to what the scripting team is doing, I will just look in there every now and then and see agony from, not Agony the Matoran, but actual agony from the people looking at tree speak and realizing it wasn't good enough and then rewriting it 15 times and smashing their heads against a wall. It looked like a fun time, but I decided to stay good 30 feet away from it just in case.
Yeah.
So when we first wrote some of the episodes, we kind of wrote what the intention of the dialogue was to be. And so one benefit of that is that you can come back and make the tree speak later and still get through the script and the meaning of the script. The difficult part is then you have to try to keep the language similar and try to make sure that it matches up so that the dialogue actually answers or responds to what's being said beforehand in tree speak. And so it doesn't always work out. And then there's the other half of where you can do that, or you can spend half of your time writing the tree speak beforehand as you're writing the episode, which is also just of a mess. But For Iliad itself, we've come up with a document for tree speak, our rules that we have for making tree speak sound like tree speak, but also at the same time not being too heavy-handed, because we have to have voice actors to actually voice the lines, and we don't want them to die while saying it.
Nah, I want to make all the voice actors in Tree Speak to commit neck rope.
I care about the difficulties that it will take to have to re-say those lines several times. Others may not, but we try to.
Nah, I just want to watch the world burn.
They make sense in the most part. So we have rules, we try to keep to them, but Tree Speak it's a living language in the way it was written. It's adapted from some of the Maori way of speaking in the way that their grammar's formatted. And so to try to keep that and really live up to it is difficult, but we think that we're currently doing one of the best jobs that we can.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very much chiming in with what Himarossi is saying in the chat right now. I definitely agree that for the most part, it was kind of during the Templar era was sort of where I would say the peak was in terms of it actually being a dialect instead of just a weird little quirk. And it definitely came off a lot more like Greg was just kind of dropping in the words out of obligation. Whereas, I don't know, especially, this may be going off tangent a little bit, especially after watching The Expanse and seeing the way that the Belters are portrayed, seeing all of those different languages come together in that kind of special, like, pidgin that they created for the books and for the show. There are some really emotional moments where you can just kind of see this culture coming together, and that's very much what I wanted to try and get across when we were updating things this time around. So very much of that is going to come in the delivery, of course. But I'm hoping that what we've put together in terms of the writing will help with the execution of that as well.
True.
Oh, and we've got a question in the Q&A chat from no one in particular. Do you currently have any projected release date for the first episode?
I can tackle that first one. No. That's the short answer. Because our goal is still to make it a CGI 3D animated episode. It's gonna take a while. We have to continue finalizing our animation team and making sure that everything's up to par, and then we have to start rendering the scenes. The difficulty in that is until that happens, we won't have 100% for sure an idea of when the first episode will release.
Yeah.
But that's another reminder that if you are a 3D modeler and you're in the audience and you would like to help support an amazing cause of animating your favorite toy line, you can join Iliad.
That would be very epic. But yeah, it's a little bit up in the air just by the nature of the fact that we have, a limited pool of people who are able to work in that space, even kind of as a side gig. So progress on that front is going to be slow for the foreseeable future. But now that we have the capability to produce animatics, and hopefully we'll continue to be able to, we will be able to make more progress on episode 1 than we ever have before, which is very exciting for all of us, and hopefully for you guys as well.
It's true. For the second question... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the second half of that question is, are there still any voice acting roles that need to be filled? Actually, we have an announcement to make. I will be voicing every character in Bionicle Iliad.
This is true. All the voices in the animatic, totally all him.
Yes, exactly. Yep. I'm simply that talented. I will also be voicing all the Rahi. All the score will be a cappella from me. And I will also read out all the credits as they roll, so you don't have to actually look at it. You can just listen. We are always looking for new voice actors. The voice acting roles are very much not all filled. If you have a decent voice, if you can do decent voices, and you've got a reasonable mic, absolutely. Feel free to audition for any of the roles that are not already taken. There will be
those roles being Tahu and Vakama at the moment.
Yes. Those are the only ones that are absolutely 100% locked down. And if you watched the animatic, I think you will see why.
Yeah.
And on that
we are very pleased to be working with Benjamin Burrows on this for Vakama. I know some people were even saying in the chat how good Vakama sounded, and that's because we got like an actual voice actor.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, on that note, there will be a casting call some point in the near future where you can find more details for the roles, for which roles are currently available, what we want them to sound like, and that will be going up fairly soon, I'd say. I won't give a date, but keep your eye out for it. Keep an eye on the server. We'll be announcing when it's up.
Yeah, over the next couple of days, we'll be announcing when we're planning on dropping the Ko-Fi, when we're planning on dropping the casting call. All of that sort of good stuff is coming up.
What you'll see is for the casting call. The casting call will be for episode 1, and so we'll be casting all of the episode 1 characters. The remaining Toa, the Turaga that appear, the Matoran that appear, and we have a decent role list if you've already seen the lines that you can use to audition. Where there's a large role, just size for episode 1, even episode 1, and so the difficulties of having a ensemble cast is that you will have to cast that many people to act.
Yeah. There are a number of extras as well, if anybody wants to toss their hat in the ring for those.
I see another question from Imarosi on YouTube. Do you have an ETA on more animatic content? And I'll take that one. We do. We have in a work timeline, and we're hoping, right? This isn't final, but we're hoping to be able to have another animatic finished around the New Year time. So January, February is when you could potentially see another animatic. This isn't a guarantee. Things may get pushed, it may get canceled, right? But if you were to look for another animatic, that's the best shot of when you would potentially see another
one. Yeah. It's at least something that we're looking forward to. Whether that will come to fruition definitely depends on how everybody's timelines match up. But that's what we're hoping for at the moment.
think I myself have another question that I'm curious to hear about. We've talked about the favorite, and we've talked about the most difficult things in regard to the animatic. But what would you say is the most difficult part of your job in terms of getting anything produced in Iliad?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. What is the most difficult aspect of your job in getting anything produced for Iliad?
um, I'd definitely say probably the networking side of things, just in terms of this project is spread across pretty much the entire planet. Like, we kind of, yeah, we've got, people in Europe, we've got people all across America from coast to coast. We've got a couple people in Australia. It's a whole scheduling nightmare. And so getting stuff like that arranged is always fun. And obviously, a lot of people working in especially some of the more intensive careers that we have open on the work server. A lot of them will have full-time jobs as well, that they're kind of working back and forth between this project and that project. And that does mean that we tend to have to plan to not hear anything back from some people for who knows how long, and that can be frustrating. But it kind of also does just make me appreciate even more the people who do take the time out of their day to not only do this, but do it fantastically. And especially with the influx of newer people that we've been getting in, the server has been brightening up quite a lot, and I'm hoping we'll be able to build that momentum into the coming year and the next year. And as I say, I mean, if anybody here is interested in joining for not just, arts purposes or for modeling, but we could use a lot of other roles. You can look on the Discord server for the stuff that we're looking for. We're always happy to take in new applications and add new members to the team.
I want to check. Do we have that linked in the video description?
I can check. Yes, we do.
Good. Just making sure. I know we got a couple new people joining, so.
I was concerned that I didn't do my job properly for a second.
Exciting.
Gid, what would you say?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it was. What was the most difficult aspect of completing your job in the project for producing Iliad content?
For this most recent Animatic?
In general.
In general. I guess the most difficult part is worrying about it. I do a lot of worrying about it. Off and on. Usually when I'm not at Discord, when I'm at my job and I'm out doing other things, I'll be worrying about Iliad. But in terms of the animatic, the most difficult thing was staying up really late and coloring storyboards. It was a time crunch. So I didn't color them to the extent that I would have liked. I would have liked to add shading, use more more colors, more interesting colors. But it is what it is, and I'm happy that people are happy with it. But if we do another animatic, I'm definitely going to put a lot more effort in because I'll have more time in advance to work on it.
That's true. And before we get to my answer for that one, I do notice that there is a question pending in the YouTube chat, which we will, as soon as we're done with this question, we'll begin answering questions again from the community. But for me, the most difficult part of my job is probably coordinating schedules. That's one of the many jobs I have to do. And so oftentimes it will result in me making uncomfortable wake up times, as I was saying before. I remember recently there was a video call, or not, a voice call for composing motifs that I wanted to oversee and make sure went smoothly. But for two Australians, what is comfortable time is not a comfortable time for me.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing that you were like, oh yeah, I can make that. And I was like, bro, that's like 4 a.m. for you or something stupid. Why are you getting up?
Mohio sacrificing everything else in his life to meet two Australians on a voice call.
Yeah.
It was a productive session. We got some interesting stuff that I can't wait for you all to hear.
Oh yes.
I'm sorry. There's another question in the Discord, but I think we should take the YouTube one first.
Yes.
Oh
Let's
yes.
take the YouTube ones. Again from Rossi. I do hope that I am saying your name right. The Bionicle community has a long history of overly ambitious projects that never really go anywhere, despite lots of initial behind-the-scenes work. How are you guys dealing with handling project scope?
I
very carefully.
I've had this stupid grin on my face the whole time you were asking that question.
Very carefully.
I joined this project over 5 years ago with the assumption that it was going to crash and burn hard. With that goal in mind, anything beyond that point to me has been an absolute success. We are still alive after 5 years. We are making progress after 5 years.
This is true.
And we are more alive now than we have ever been before. For me, that is a win on all fronts.
And I think in addition to that,
yeah, without a doubt,
in terms of handling project scope, we've broken it up. I've talked with some of the other community leaders in the Bionicle community in a couple of different points in time, and kind of just tried to learn from what's worked for them and what hasn't. And recently, I've spoken. Most recently, I've spoken with the leader and / showrunner of the Mangai project, and I think his advice was definitely welcome in the fact that we've broken it up into more easily manageable steps, but also with a long-term goal in mind. And so when we set out to make this Bionicle Day project, we set that as the goal. That was the long-term goal. I think it was 7 months ahead of time, and we worked in steps to get there. And so a lot of progress started slow as people got used to the smaller scope, as people tried to get started up again. But as we kept going, that scope became a lot more manageable, and it became really easy to tell that it was going to happen. And so I think in terms of handling that large scope, we're going to continue to break it up. We're going to do a couple more animatics if we can, as we build up the team necessary for that pipeline, making sure that we can make storyboards as smoothly and efficiently as possible, and making sure we can get lines recorded, making sure that we can get people cast. And as we do that in the back end, we're going to be developing the animation side. And that's one of the difficulties we've had for a long time. but we're at the point where we can get really started with it. We're just missing a couple of key individuals, but in the meantime, we'll get it moving, get the development there, so that as we're making these smaller things, we can reach our final goal. And right now, our goal is episode 1, right? Our big long-term, super long-term goal, our final end term, is recreating the whole entire story of Bionicle in a TV format, right? But for now, episode 1, even closer to that, the next Animatic. And so that's how we kind of handle our project scope.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where there is obviously going to be a lot of steps involved in this whole process, and we're going to want to take it one scene at a time, every single time, just for the time being at the very least. If we get to the point where we can work on multiple scenes simultaneously, I would be absolutely ecstatic. But for now, at least, taking it one scene at a time will get this episode done in some form eventually. I know this might irritate somebody else in this chat, but personally, I would be happy if we were able to release episode 1 as just animatics. It's something that would be finished, even if it isn't necessarily what we planned for originally, and you know, that is kind of the projected goal at the moment. But I do think it would be worth people measuring their expectations in terms of what we might be able to do in the future. And if that ended up being what we released and what we would continue to release in the future, I would be happy with that. Because, for one thing, it's done. And we're getting the storyline out into the public sphere, which we've been sitting on for a while now, and we know it's good, we know it's solid, and we want to share that with the world, no matter what.
And worst case scenario, like if the project would die tomorrow, I would just drop all of the scripts that we have, current state and all, and you'd get to see what we had.
Hopefully not without my approval.
Well, if the project's dead.
No, if the project is dead, you are no longer in charge. Viva la revolution.
I own the corpse. Ultimately, my personal goal is looking years from now. Season 1, if that releases in full, I will have no issue with Iliad dying and never coming back. At that point, I feel that fully animated, fully voice acted, fully scored, full season episode 1, I will be able to die happy. At this point, a lot of what we're able to do, it depends entirely on who we have. And there's external, not so much intended pressure from other projects which have been around for longer or shorter, who have gotten far more attention because they were flashier or because they had made more progress. And especially, I remember one of the projects announce and then hundreds of people apply in a day. And while it would be great to have hundreds of people apply to Iliad right now, I prefer to have 1 or 2 people who I know really care about the project and are willing to put their time and energy into it.
Yeah. It's very much... I think it's something that we've grappled with a lot over the whole time that we've been in this project. Just the scope of what we need to do in the long term. And I think the thing is, we have started to get the gears turning. The gears aren't turning entirely efficiently. They'll definitely need some grease, but we know where they need to be greased. And with some luck, we will be able to keep those gears turning and gradually be able to get this towards where it needs to be. And with some more luck, add the other gears that we need to finish off the pipeline and be able to produce episode 1. If we get to the point where we can produce episode 1 in full, even if it takes another 3 years, that is then, I would say, a fantastic position for tackling future episodes, the rest of the series, even if we only made it to season 1, as Gid mentioned. I would be so happy with that. The fact that we have come together and gone against the impossible odds of being such a ridiculous Bionicle project, having that under our belts would be the greatest achievement of my life. And I would say probably quite a few other people's as well.
Yeah. And I think kind of touching on Himurasi's addition to that is that redoing all of Bionicle sounds ridiculous, in my opinion. That sort of thing takes proper funding or an absurd amount of time with insanely dedicated people. Most people just have other things come up on life, and unfortunately, so the production team and cast will inevitably change. That's true. Our roster has changed drastically since server and the team began. I've seen people come, I've seen people go. I've been here not since the start, but close enough that I know that there have been a lot of people who have had circumstances change, who've had relationships change, who've had to move on, who are no longer capable of helping with the project, and it hurts. But I think the team we have now is the one that can go to the distance. And I do agree with you, Himurasi, on your last comment, is that I wish you guys all the best, but I think you're right to focus on just get episode 1 done. Hopefully the team will grow if that's successful, which gives you more options, and I agree. I think our team can go the distance, can get episode 1 done, and we'll see massive success from there. Moving on, I think, because we have a couple other questions that we should address. We only have 28 minutes left in the live stream. We will be ending at noon. And so please get in your questions that you have. Get them in so that we can try to get to them before the stream ends. We will be ending in 28 minutes. And then I hear there's something of another live stream going on today.
There's been a rumor going around.
So we'll end just in time for you all to participate in that, if you so desire. But moving on to the next question, again from E4439QV5. Another question, is love canon? Yes. Moving on. From no one in particular again, don't know if this has been asked yet, but which character has been the most fun to write for?
Oh boy. I feel like we would have to get Inamata back on here because he's probably got a lot to say on this.
Well, he did write down a couple of responses in the Q&A chat. One of the things he had answered was Akmu, however you would like to pronounce his name, or Makuta. And those are definitely fun. If you don't know, Akmu is one of the characters in the show who will be making a lot of reoccurring appearances. And so with his character, it's a very complicated character, one of misinformation, being misinformed about how he came to be as he currently is, and one of filled with bitterness and seeking vengeance that's really fun to write for. And there have been a lot of scenes where you think, oh, Akmu might do something good, and then Akmu's just like, no, I'm Akmu, I want my vengeance, and just completely change the game for everybody involved in that episode. In
Yeah,
terms of
he's
sorry.
yeah, no, he's very much fun also in the sense that he is a businessman. He knows how to
True.
spin a good yarn, and a lot of the time it's his charisma that makes him so fun to watch. Just being the most evil creature that you've ever seen on the face of the earth.
As someone who's written very, very little in the scripts, I just tell people that they do it wrong. I have seen pretty much all the Ackmount dialogue, and it is so fun just looking at this, imagining how he would sound, the little mannerisms in the animation. It is an absolute treat
He
to
sounds like
read.
just reading the dialogue, he sounds like a rat and a snake mixed together. Those are apt descriptions of his character.
You will love to hate him when you see him on screen. As for Makuta, I'm going to cite floating Lego head with a turban from Lego Magazine 2002 and say, stay tuned.
True.
I think personally, my favorite character to write for is probably either Pohatu or Liwa. Besides the tree speak aspect, which we've done in an interesting fashion, and I'll just say tune in for that. But for Liwa, I think we put Liwa through a lot. And so seeing him face some of the most tough situations out of all the Toa and come out of it drastically changes him a couple of times. And so it's really fun to write this character who goes through a lot, who has this drastic personality change, and try to bring him out of that in a fashion that's really like motivating and personable and makes sense as a character. There's one scene I can think of off the top of my head where if like we get a Liwa actor in, if they're good enough, that scene will just have everyone stunned. Because like the scene with Liwa is just it hits you just by reading the dialogue. And it'll be fantastic to see what the voice actor can do with that.
I think I know the scene you're referring to, and for those Liwa fans out there, you might not be expecting this from Liwa, but you're going to enjoy it.
On the other
Oh,
side,
yes.
for Pohatu, he's the glue that holds the Mata together in our story, and I think it's very cool to see him. He goes through his own struggles, and when he struggles, the whole team struggles, because he really is that glue that keeps them all motivated, that keeps them together. And he might not be as like joking and jovial as Liwa, but he has his own humor, and he provides his own kind of like encouragement to the rest of the team. That's really fun to like utilize in different fashions, and it's also really fun to watch Pohatu annoy Kopaka as I'm writing it, because Kopaka is the straight man, and seeing Pohatu and Kopaka bond is just another fun aspect of getting to write Pohatu.
Yeah. And it's kind of, some people might be confused by that in terms of the fact that Gali is usually the one advocating for the Toa Mata being together. I kind of see Gali as basically the stressed single mother trying to corral all of her kids. Pohatu is the one that everybody actually listens to most of the time, unfortunately.
Well, it's a progression. I think they don't listen to Gali as much, but as the story continues, when Gali like points out a concern, they listen. And
Yeah.
they take it in stride.
And it definitely it's definitely something that evolves over the course of the story. It's kind of this kind of goes into a little bit of what Wingding is saying now in the Q&A chat. In the original story, there is definitely a lot more of kind of a pendulum swing back and forth with the Toa Mata / Toa Nuva of, okay, Now we're all a team. We're really working together really well. Now we hate each other again. Now we're a team. Now we hate each other. Now we're a team. We kind of wanted to make that a lot more gradual and sort of see the different stages of trust that everybody is having in each other and make that work.
And
so that when we get to that final confrontation, in the kind of climax of season 1, it's like, okay, these guys are a team now, and they're not getting separated by anything.
And I think we definitely work it in a way so it's not, they can't agree because they can't agree. Like, they're just disagreeable. Like, I think that's one of the things I hate the most about the Tahu and Kopaka dynamic, is that they just never get along. They just constantly never get along until, like, after 03. But we have that, but we utilize circumstances to kind of leverage their differences and opinions, rather than they just are base against each other. And so we have situations come up where they disagree, and we utilize that to highlight their differences rather than just they can't agree.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of the time when Kopaka and Tahu disagree in the scripts, resolution is usually Kopaka gives Tahu a little ground to maneuver, and then Tahu makes the right choice, which I feel is pretty much in line with their character.
And I think for the first arc, that's definitely the case. But I think going forward, it's also a thing of, we also develop this idea of Tahu leading his team the right way so that his team can trust him. And that's one of the aspects that he grows into, so that, and Kopaka learns to trust it.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? We don't have too much longer.
We do have from Wingding changed to Wonga. How much of a motivation is there to diverge or not to diverge from the original story? Which we were touching on a little bit there towards the end. And I think I could potentially cover that with my answer to the previous question to an extent. I'm honestly, it's kind of more about who I'm excited to write for, as opposed to currently writing for, necessarily. I think the ones that I'm the most interested about writing currently are probably the Taraga in general, because they're in an interesting place where, when they were first introduced as characters, they were all just kind of the same stock, I'm a wise old guy, listen to me and I will give you exposition. But with the hindsight that we now have of how they turn out as characters as the Toa Metru, you can do so much for expanding each of their characters in these early episodes. You know, more of Oniwa's attitude, or Wenua's kind of like eccentric interests, or Nokama's kind of similar need to Gali of wanting to keep everyone together, and kind of a bit of, you know, especially kind of empathetic, sympathetic wisdom towards Gali's struggles to keep the Toa together, remembering how much of a nightmare it was with the Toa Metru. That kind of thing is really interesting to me. And so, while we definitely want to keep the main sort of story beats intact, we're definitely willing to finagle things a little bit for the sake of making a good story and developing these characters along the lines that we now know them to be, which they just couldn't have possibly known when they were being written initially. And I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, for me, I think there's this motivation to keep it the same because I don't want to change the story because everyone loves the story. I don't want to drastically alter it and make it unrecognizable. But I also want to at the same time present it in the best possible way. And so there are some times where I have to weigh what currently existed with what I think would make a more consistent or better narrative. And I think there are some times where I feel like what existed is just the stronger pull. But there are some times where I think the stronger narrative is the stronger pull. And I think there are some
Borak Kalak! Entire Borak Kalak!
Where the Borat, or for example, with the Borat Kalark, which I won't go into too much detail right now, maybe in a future Q&A, is definitely where I lean towards the stronger narrative. And I think you'll really like the way we tackle the Borak and the Borak Kal and the Toa Nuva as once we get there.
Yeah.
I see we have one last question. No one in particular. If Iliad continues past season 1, which scene from the entire Bionicle story are you most excited to create? That's a hard one. There is a lot of scenes in the Bionicle story.
There are so many iconic scenes.
If I was to take a couple of scenes from each kind of like main storyline, I think from Metru would probably be the discovery of Doom being Makuta. Just that whole scene, I feel like I want to make it as tense as possible. That reveal to be like this thing that was slowly figured out by someone, and then make it like an oh no, and really kind of like make this feel so powerful. I think from the Ignika storyline, I would probably say the battle with the Paraka. Like, I feel like that can be so much fun, and if like the Paraka are so like different and like chaotic already as it is, but being able to go in there and being able to have a couple of fight scenes that we can like really just go ham on because the Paraka are just unpredictable would be really cool to make. And then I think for one later storyline, I think for Barra Magna, I would really like just being able to like create that scene where you have like that fight between the giant robots would be so sick.
Yeah. Honestly, what I really want to do is just make that entire final battle sequence really do it justice. Because that whole thing was kind of just... It was everything coming together, and it was kind of limited by the fact that, you know, they were basically just kind of having to wrap up on short notice. But it's definitely one where, with hindsight, I would love to be able to go back and make that as climactic and as incredible as it had every right to be, with all of the characters and all of the plot threads that had been built up to that point. You know, you've got so many different spinning plates there. You've got like 3 generations of Toa. You've got the Chroniclers Company. You've got all of those members of the Order of Matanui we've been following, and all of the stuff on Barra Magna as well, which I'm definitely hoping to expand a lot more, just in terms of kind of character and world building and that sort of thing. But yeah, just doing that whole finale justice would really kind of be the point for me.
We'll take 2 more questions. The addition from Wunger, and then there's one from Jamie Lee in YouTube. We'll take those. I'll answer the first one from Wunger, and then Gid, I think you could answer and wrap up with the second one. The first one is, do you have epic Matorial sacrifice level scenes of your own that you have in mind that you want to write? Yes. There are so many scenes that I feel like can have such really good time to shine. I think of a lot of examples in the Metro arc where I'd love to like have some like to have moments where it feels so important, and I oh, that's the other thing. I really want to do Time Trap. I've been wanting to write Time Trap and put Time Trap into a script for so long.
Oh,
And
we
the
have some
ideas-
silly plans for Time Trap.
The ideas we have planned for Time Trap are going to be so much fun. There's a lot of shenanigans, and the three-way fight between the Shattered One, Vakama, and Makuta will be fun to write out. But in terms of sacrifice, I think one really fun sacrifice moment will be Lacan.
Yeah, I think because that's definitely one that we would have the opportunity to build up a lot more, because we are already starting to plan out kind of a rough outline of what season 2 will look like as we're coming towards the end of season 1. And there's definitely the current idea is to have a little bit more of a strained relationship between Vakama and Lee Khan. And seeing that develop over the course of that whole arc, and then have it come to that climactic conclusion where, you know, Lee Khan kind of proves to everyone the hero that he has been and always will be kind of quite heart-wrenching, but also very satisfying.
Yeah. I think for this, we'll answer the last question from Jamie Lee. Do you need any more voice actors? I know we answered this before.
Jamie
Please.
Lee, you may have heard this before, but I will be voicing all the characters in Bionicle Iliad. No, as we mentioned before, we'll be sometime soon announcing the existence of a casting call for Bionicle Iliad Episode 1, and that will have a complete list of all voice characters in Episode 1, and there will be many more characters to be added for the future episodes. So voice acting will pretty much always be open.
Yeah. Bionicle has a lot of characters, even in the early story, and that's not going to be changing anytime soon.
And lastly, Gid, how would people be able to find out more about Iliad, or how would they be able to ask future questions?
So, you may have heard me mention it a few times. There is a Discord server. In fact, we are talking in that Discord server right now in one of the voice channels. It's the Bionicle Iliad fan server. It's completely open to the public. It's not the work server. If you want to join, you can click the Discord link in the chat below the video. There's places to ask questions, there's places to comment about the project, talk about basically anything you want to talk about, whether related to the project or not. Wonger asked, can I get a link for the Discord server? There's questions and stuff. Thanks so much. I'll DM you later.
Epic.
And with that, it is 7 minutes to noon EDT, which means other Bionicle streams, if they were to exist, maybe starting fairly soon. We are going to close out one more time with playing the Animatic. I want to thank Inamata, Inactivist, and Iconic Days for their work on the Animatic, that it would not have been possible at all without their efforts. I want to thank Mokyo and Obsidian, Uncle Edgehog, for tolerating me during this live stream. For all of you for showing up, thank you for the questions, for the viewership. Make sure to keep an eye on social media and on our Discord for when the Ko-fi and the casting call go live. and hopefully we'll be speaking to you again soon. Oh, and if you're in the Discord or on our social media, let us know. Do you like these kind of live streams? Would you like to see more in the future? We won't always have stuff to present, but we would like to hang out with the community, and if you enjoy it, we'd like to do it more often for your benefit. I think that's everything that needs to be said, so we'll finish off with the animatic.
Thank you all so
Say
much
goodbye,
for joining.
Mohio.
Goodbye.
Farewell.
Adios.
Now!
We got it!
Nice catch, Jala.
Don't just attack it! Your mask. It isn't like the others. You're not one of Makuda's beasts.
You think I'm just some beast? I am more than a simple beast for you to pen. I am Tahu! And you are a pest.
Jala, are you all right? This is some way for a Toa to act towards the ones who he is destined to protect.
A Toa?
The Toa?
Yes, this is our Toa. He apparently thinks himself the Toa of stupidity. And you call yourself the captain of the guard.
Yes?
This is the one we have waited for. And you decide to trap him like a wild Hikaki.
But I didn't... My apologies, Taragavakama. It won't happen again.
If you decide to become the Toa of Fire, come to my hut. There I can explain everything.